Welcome to Adventures in Leadership, the podcast where we explore the connection between adventure and leadership. I'm your host, Bruce Hough. Life and business is full of the unusual, the exciting, the unknowns, risks, and ambiguity, all of which define adventure in this journey of ours. In each episode, we'll take a deep dive into the lessons and experiences that can be gained from adventuring beyond our comfort zones and taking on new challenges, and how we can apply those to life, leadership, and business. Join us as we hear from business leaders, experts, and yes, explorers and adventurers who have leveraged their experiences to develop the skills, the resilience, and mindset needed to be effective leaders. So grab your gear and buckle up. It's time to embark on a journey of personal growth, inspiration, courage, and discovery. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Adventures in Leadership. This is our podcast from LEAD, Leadership Experience Adventure Development. That's the acronym, LEAD, for our company that is involved in leadership development and growth opportunities, utilizing experience and adventure to help us accomplish that. We love accompanying people in that journey to leadership growth. And this podcast is really dedicated to bringing to the forefront with our friends and associates and new people that we'll be meeting along the way that are involved in leadership, that are involved in adventure, and that are involved in both. And today, I think we're going to talk to somebody who's involved in both a little bit. And I am more than pleased to introduce my son, Derek Hough, Derek Bruce Hough, in fact, my namesake in that regard. He and I have shared some fun adventures together, haven't we, Derek?
Absolutely. It's been great. But thanks for having me, Dad, on this on this podcast. This is great. And I'm excited. I love the concept of lead, just because it represents everything that we love and that we share our love for, with working with people, community, taking action, and adventure. You know, both in just everyday life and also in career, but also in actual in the mountains adventure. So I love it.
Outdoors. We do love the outdoors. Look, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences together, your experiences. But first, let me just introduce, for people who may not know Derek. Derek is best known among certain demographics, at least, as the six-time winner of Dancing with the, wait a minute, I need to do the right voice. Dancing with the Stars. So he 6 times, nobody's even come close to that. And I will say, in as unbiased as I can be as a dad, is that he was able to do that not necessarily with the most talented dancing partners. And that's a lot of credit goes to Derek for his ability to lead his partners in a way that they were able to grow and develop. And that's yeah.
I will say some of them were pretty good too. I will say
some of them were really talented. Yeah, there were some that were really, and you had some really talented ones where you didn't win. And so it really is a very interesting history, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Derek's also a New York Times bestselling author. He is a 3-time Emmy winner for choreography. He has produced and directed and starred in numerous television specials and shows, and he's aligned pretty heavily with the ABC Disney organization, and that's kind of a fun one because you get to do some really interesting things with them, and not the least of which is help your nieces and nephews go to Disneyland on occasion and cut the line, which is great.
That's the best part. Forget everything else. We get the VIP experience. Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about as a young boy. I mean, we used to go do things. We were road trippers. We'd go on road trips and and sing at the top of our lungs, Bruce Springsteen songs and U2's Joshua Tree album and stuff like that. But as a very young man, you had the desire to really become proficient as a ballroom dancer. And by the way, making that choice as a young man, becoming a dancer, is a bit of an adventure too. It's not exactly the norm, right? Within what some people think is what young men ought to be doing, and sure. Yet through that, talk a little bit about that adventure.
Yeah, well, I think the adventure of becoming a dancer, I think, was unique in the sense that, well, obviously growing up in Utah, we traveled as well. We drove an hour to get to dance class every day. And just even that was an adventure, especially during the snowy seasons, like it was dangerous, to get to class. But also, I didn't always have the best experience of, with certain kids knowing that I was in dance. I often got picked on and kind of teased about it. And because it was something that at the time, at least where I wasn't, looked on as like boys are supposed to do football and basketball and baseball. And by the way, which I did all those still, but I also danced. But what I realized when what made me fall in love with dance was music. I played drums. I loved music. We always had music in the house, and we'd always have these dance parties in the living room.
Is that what you called it? Music? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, by the way, it was Billy. Well, no, this is all we had: Billy Joel, Les Miserables, U2, very, very slim pickings, but I have to say, but like genres of music. But I loved it. And so when I went into dance class, as soon as I heard, and I didn't want to go, I did not want to go. I was like, this is for girls. I'm gonna, and I walked in there and I was like, wait, there's girls in here. This is kind of cool. But more importantly, when I heard the music, and then when I experienced the feeling of moving my body and syncing my body up to what the music was doing, there was like this overwhelming feeling of like, whoa, this is really interesting. This is really cool. Like I felt something. There's something like within me that is connected to this. And then of course that just got developed, and I had great mentors, I had great teachers who were really encouraging, and then I had really cool opportunities to travel. So I was like, wow, dance is actually taking me to places. So then that was an adventure, getting into a bus full of dancers, and we're like trucking over, driving to LA and going to a dance convention, and it's terrifying. It's scary because you're like, am I good enough? I don't know these people that I'm competing against. What are they going to be like? It's all this unknown, and the only known that you have is your preparation. That's the only thing you really know is like, am I prepared? Am I ready for this? And by the way, sometimes I'm not. I would put music on, and this track would start in the middle of the track. The song would start in the middle of the track, and I'm like on stage and having to like pick up where it is, like just terrified. So there was lots of different experiences where basically dance became like an ultimate adventure for me.
Well, you identified, and by the way, you identified some key elements of leadership growth and development. For example, the whole idea of dealing with ambiguity, the unknown, taking the risk, where even as a young boy, under 12 years of age, you're being asked to do things that you've never done before. You're having to perform in front of lots of people. And then the ultimate adventure sort of came when you decided that when an opportunity was afforded you to go become really the top of the game in dance, you had that chance to go move to England. And again, unknown, ambiguity, risk, all these things that in leadership, if a person can learn how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, not knowing what's going to happen, for example, then of course you develop skill sets that will serve you the rest of your life and will serve other people that you are intending to serve in any capacity. Talk a little bit about going to England. about what that felt
Yeah.
like.
I mean, being 12 years old, and I feel like I was like a relatively mature 12 years old, because I look at some of my nieces and nephews and I'm like, wait, I was that young when I did that? What? Um, but at the time I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but
And
what
by
was
the
going through
way,
my,
your 10-year-old sister was actually a lot more mature than you were, just to bring
I
memory back. So,
undoubtedly. But what went through my mind actually at a young age was realizing, I think, that in order to sort of progress and to be better, you have to proximity to the right people, is important, and so if I want to be a great dancer, I need to be around the best dancers. I need to surround myself with the best there are. And at the time, England, is a hub for ballroom and Latin dancing. That's like where the best of the best train. That's where they live, and I knew that. So for me, I was like, okay, if I want to be the best, I had to surround myself with the best, and I was fortunate enough to train with amazing coaches and live with them, with Cork and Shirley Ballas. But it was definitely nerve wracking. Uh, Actually, you know what? It's funny. I say that, but actually, it wasn't. It wasn't actually. I recall being very confident about that move, and about what my idea was about wanting to be a champion. Because that's the thing. I had a clear goal, right? That's another important thing. I had a clear goal. I had a clear vision of, like, I want to be really good at this. I want to be a champion. I want to be the best, because I went to a competition in England like a year prior, and I got kicked out of the first round. And that's when I was like,
I remember
wow,
that. I was
there
there.
are, I was like, I am nowhere near where, like, I thought I was. I was like, I think I'm great. And I go there, I'm like, oh, I am not good. And that was for me the sort of the moment where I was like, I need to be around this environment. So when I had that opportunity, I wasn't nervous about it. I jumped at it. I was like, yes, let's go. Um, but
By the
uh,
way,
but but
I was going to say my memory of that wasn't
yeah,
that you were such a bad dancer, but that you didn't look like everybody else. And when I say that, what I mean is that everybody else had a tailored tuxedo that was built for dancing, that the shoulders fit in a certain way. And we had rented a wedding tuxedo before we left the United States, would had the big shoulders that kind of every time you lifted your arms, the shoulders came up
yeah.
to your ears. And it was like, he just doesn't look like a
Oh,
dancer compared to everybody else. And it
oh,
was like, again, this idea of preparation and knowing what to do. We didn't know. We were completely taken aback by this. But we quickly learned, and you quickly learned how to adapt to this new environment.
well, and that's, by the way, that's funny. I remember that now. It's just like the suit. I lift my arms like this, and I'm like, why? Everybody looks so good. I look like the crazy
Like the
cousin over
lurch
here.
on the Adams Family or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, but it was really cool. When I lived there, it was, I jumped right into going to school, training, competing every Sunday, and that, we traveled to school every day by train, hour and a half. Like, that was a crazy adventure. And again, at the time, it became kind of like the norm. But there would be moments where I'd be sitting on London Bridge overlooking the Thames, and I'd sit there and it's dark, it's raining out, and I'd be like 15 years old, and I'm like, this is this is kind of cool. Like, this kid from South Jordan, Utah, and I'm in one of the most incredible, cities in the world, like this, ancient city, and here I am. I'm doing my thing. And listen, there were definitely times where I was like, it was hard. It was really hard. But knowing what I wanted, and knowing that I was like, I wanted to achieve something, it was like, yeah, of course it's going to be hard. You know what I mean? Of course it's going to be challenging. It was almost like I wasn't expecting it to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be a walk in the park. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be difficult. And I sort of embraced that. I think I embraced that challenge. And what was great too was getting, incremental achievements, where I was like, ooh, this week I did better, or I could feel a little bit improvement. And so feeling that improvement, gradually inspired me and kept me going and moving forward, which was, something that kept me there for a long time,
Yeah. So the quick transition after being there for many years as a young man, you spent your youth literally in England. You did some cool things there. You were on the West End in Footloose, which was the equivalent of Broadway in people in America's view. You literally, I remember the writer of that play saying to you, because he was there one night that I was there, and he said, Derek, you can play this role for as long as you want. And I just remember him saying that because they were very happy with that performance. You toured all over England for that performance as well. And you started.
But by the way, what he also said though too, he also said, hey, take it easy during the week so you have energy for the weekend. And right. And I was like, my man, I was like, once those lights go on and I was like, I only know one gear. It's just like full out. So
full out, right? Yeah. It was great. And then you and Mark Ballas, who was really sort of your brother from another mother, who you lived with, you guys started a rock and roll band. It was called Almost Amy in the beginning, and then the Bells Hough band, and you kind of kicked it. And you were really thinking, after you sort of reached the kind of the pinnacle of what you could do as a young man in dance, you were the world champion Latin ballroom dancer in the world. I mean, anytime you can be the best in the world in anything, it's kind of like, wow, that's pretty exciting. But
it was, by the way, that particular event, just to go back to the world championship, I was sort of expecting to be about fourth or fifth, based on like previous results and things. And so I also had tweaked my neck, and my neck I had an injured neck and I couldn't turn it properly. And for people that don't know about ballroom and Latin competitions, they are extreme. They're like running marathons, like running a couple marathons in a day. Like you're starting at 9 a.m. and you don't finish until about 2 a.m. And it's round after round after round. And the stamina, the endurance, the sweat, the just, it's so difficult. And here's the thing too, because you're doing that, it's really hard to eat food and to fuel yourself. So you're gradually getting more tired because you're getting more fatigued because you're not getting yourself to fuel, but you also have to peak and you have to be like, so I just wanted to frame that a little bit, because ballroom and Latin competitions, and my experience of doing so many different things, West End, show, Broadway, tours, there's nothing more demanding physically than a ballroom and Latin competition that I've done. And the reason why I say that is because the world championship, I hurt my neck. I was sort of going to be fifth. That was kind of like what people were expecting. But there was this weird thing that happened where I almost the expectation went out the window for me. I didn't put any expectation on myself. I appreciated being there. I was just like, this is awesome. This is so cool. I'm representing, the country that I was representing at the time, which was Great Britain. And actually, what was it? Poland? I can't remember. I was bouncing around. But I was so excited to be there, and my neck was hurt, and I was like, hey, whatever. And I took that expectation off myself, and I think I performed better than I've ever performed in my entire life, because there was like this weight that was lifted. And I think because of that, I was able to come out, and my partner and we won, which was a big upset. It was a big, it was kind of like a big moment. And but it was a great lesson for me, where even to this day, I put so much expectation, so much pressure on myself, and I had to catch myself. And I'm like, well, how can I just appreciate this moment right now? Because I know that if I do that, I'm going to perform much better. I'm going to perform much better at a much higher level if I take that expectation off. and I'm just appreciating this moment. So I just wanted to point that out because that was a
That's,
really pivotal moment for me.
which, by the way, I mean, this whole idea of being present in the moment and not, getting caught up in what could be, what might be, but just saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm just right here in the moment. That's such a great leadership principle too, because especially when you're communicating with people and you're trying to have a good dialogue, or you're trying to perform something, being present in the moment where you are focused on just that one thing, it just changes the entire opportunity for not just productivity but for achievement. And I just think that's a great lesson, Derek. Thanks for sharing that.
Well,
um,
and to just to add on to that just a little bit real fast is that's also why I love dance, because it does force me into the moment. And I think that moving your body is a great way to sort of be present. There's this sort of I feel like now we're very, very still in our bodies. We're very busy in our minds. I know my mind is, I you don't want to come in here. It's crazy. There's lots going on,
it's a
but
madhouse.
it really is. And but the fastest ways to quiet that is to move my body and to move and to do something physical. And I think that knowing that little hack, at least, if you will, is also very helpful. But I think that's also why I gravitated towards dance, because I was like, wow, I just naturally have this very busy brain, and dance was a way that I was able to sort of like quiet it and be in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that truly is a life hack. I mean, when you are stumped, when you are stuck, when you are feel like you're spinning your tires and but you've got a deadline, so you're going to you're going to keep after it, you're going to go, and then you realize, well, wait a second, maybe the best thing for me to do is to actually get away from all of this, go shoot some hoops, go
Yeah.
for a run, go do something physical, do something that is gonna get this thing moving, so that when you come back, then you can kind of get right back into you're in a different state, and that mindset then allows you to get back into what you were trying to maybe do but were frustrated in trying to get done. I know that works for me a lot.
Yeah.
And I even have sometimes I don't have any on my phone and stuff. I don't have any notifications because I think they're the devil. They distract you from what you want to focus on. So I don't have them, but I do have one thing, and it's the appointment that I'm keeping with myself to get up out of my chair and to go move, because that's the one thing I just need to be reminded of sometimes is, hey, you know what? It's time to get up and just get out of here.
Well, I think when when we say movement, it's like we were meant to move. We really were. I think we were, look back at what, back in the beginning of time, we were hunters and gatherers. We had to move. We had to search. We had to find. We were always on the move, and our bodies were still the same. You know what I mean? We're still on the same software and stuff, and our brains really. I thought this was quite interesting. I heard this before, and I thought this was really fascinating. That our brains aren't designed to make us happy; they're designed to help us survive.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
To survive. And so back in, when we're hunters and gatherers, our brains are designed to look for what's wrong, to look for what's dangerous. We're like, what's wrong? What's dangerous? Da, 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 da. And now we're in this time, we live very comfortable lives. We have cars, we have houses, we have water, we have food, but our brains are still working on this like software. We're like, what's wrong? What's danger? But instead of like saber-tooth tigers, it's going, what's this person thinking of me? What's this person thinking of me? What I need to be doing more. I need to da, da, da. And our brains are sort of like working this old software, and we get to this point where it starts working against us. And I think that when we get to that primal state where we just are moving our bodies, we're breathing, we get the oxygen flowing, the blood pumping, it's a great way to be like, hey, quiet.
Yeah. So anyway, you had all these great experiences in England. You came home to come visit your old man for about a month. We were up in Coeur d'Alene. I remember distinctly we're in your sister's house, and Julianne called, and she'd come back to America, earlier. And she said, "Hey, Derek, one of the guys in the Dancing with the Stars tour injured themselves. We need a male dancer."
Yeah.
And you're like, no way. I'm working on the music. I'm playing the music. I got, things going, we're going to be rock and roll. We're going to be, the Rolling Stones, whatever. And, and I said, "But Derek," I says, "you have no, noticeable means of support. This is a paycheck." Dad always thinking, right?
Which by the way, and that was important because I just finished doing a big show in London and Footloose, and I was the lead role. And by the way, after all that, I had no money because after all that hard work, no money because one, I was getting paid really not good, but also I was trying to stay healthy and feed myself, and I spent all my money on food. And so after all that experience, you're right, I literally was at negative. I was in the negative. So you were like, go do this.
Go do the tour. You'll make enough in the summer to be able to spend a year in England working on your music. So he gets into the show, and next things that happened, and he realized that wasn't such a bad gig.
Well, the next thing that happened was that Julianne got asked to be on the next season, and I was very insulted. No, I wasn't. I actually wasn't insulted. It was funny because, but she got kind of picked up to be on the season 4, and I went back to England, and then I came back on the show to do a little guest performance with Julianne, and then that's when the producer said, "Hey, do you want to be on the show?" And I was like, "Nah, this isn't really for me. I'm not really in the ballroom dance world thing anymore."
Then I said,
and then yeah. But then what happened was that Julianne won, and I was like, interesting.
Competitive. Wait a minute. You're not saying you were competitive with your little sister?
No, I wasn't competitive. No, she just it was more that she showed like what was possible. She was like, look what I did. Like look how great this experience was. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. And then I joined season 5, and then she won again and beat me, which by the way, to this day, she loves, man. She loves.
So that was with her first win was with Apollo Ono, and then the second was with Elio Castroneves, right?
That's right.
Who were you dancing? Oh, you were dancing with Jennifer.
Garth.
Oh, Jenny. Yeah, that's right, Jenny Garth. Yeah,
Jenny Garth. Yeah. She was my first partner. That's right.
90210.
That's it.
So let's just talk a little bit about this, because this is, dancing. We talk about taking the lead, right? Dancing, we always think of, that one person leads, and it's not always that way. And we can talk later about that maybe, but the reality is there was a lot of leadership principles evident that you had to learn very quickly to survive, not the show, the partner. And when I mean survive the partner is that most of them were older than you were. They had different life experiences, and they did not know how to dance, and they were put into your hands, and you had to figure out what to do with it really quickly.
Oh man, you talk about like trial by fire. That was a great experience for that. Well, first of all, I competed and I was a world champion, but competing and dancing is very different to teaching and coaching, and they are completely different animals. And I didn't really realize that at the time. I was just, they said, "Do you teach?" I'm like, yeah. I completely lied, of course. Of course, and
just to clarify, when you say you lied, it's not that you lied. In my view, what you did is you projected a future opportunity. I'll never forget when you were dancing for the Queen of England, I think, and was it Rod Stewart that was on the show? And they said, "Hey, can you do a backflip, a running backflip?" And you said, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do that."
Yeah, and I couldn't, and I almost killed Rod Stewart, but that's another story for another
time. But you were projecting the future opportunity. Yeah. Okay.
Here's what it was really, if you think about it, and I jokingly say I lied, but you're right though, Dad, because even just me going to England when I was a young kid, that was me having confidence in myself, saying like, I'll figure it out. I trust myself that I'll figure it out. Same thing with Dancing with the Stars, was like, I'm not really experienced in that place, in that area, but I'm going to figure it out, because you know what? I always find a way. And I have that I'm a very curious type of person, where I want to learn and I want to, improve. But it was a big learning experience, right out of the gate, because it's not only the most terrifying part about it was that all of a sudden this person is looking to you. They are looking to be guided by you, and that's it. And so there was a lot of false, confidence there. Really, like I would be like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I would be like, act like I knew what I was doing, and act like I knew what I was saying. And in some parts, I did know what I was talking about, but I didn't know how to articulate it. That was the key. How do I articulate this? Because I would just go, just do that. And they're like, well, what's that? I'm like, well, it's this. They're like, well, what's this? And so I had to be like, wow, okay, shoot. I can't just like show them and they do it. I have to like articulate it in a way. So then I would look at my partner and I would say, okay, what's their background? What's their expertise? And then how do I use that language that they already know and then apply it to dance? And I think that's one lesson I really learned that was really, really helpful, where like I have an actress. Okay, so then if I talk about a dance step, I go, okay, so we're in a scene, all right? And I would start talking in sort of acting terms. Or I would be with a singer and I was like, that diaphragm where you sing from down here? Okay, I want you to engage that. And that's going to create your core stability, which is going to help the posture and all these different things. Where I'm working with Amy Purdy, who's a Paralympian, snowboarder. She has 2 prosthetic legs. I would start using her lingo. I'm like, okay, so when you're cutting down the mountain, and you're moving away from your toes to the heels, or in her case, her hips, using her hips to you move her body. I would just start using that lingo. So it was a really great experience to sort of adapt to whomever was in front of me. I couldn't teach the same for everybody. I had to adapt and change the way I taught and coached for each partner. And I think that was something that was amazing. And here's the other thing too. I'm just going to jump into it real fast. Was the teaching part was really helpful, but the part that really came into play was helping people battle their nerves and help, because these celebrities are in a very vulnerable position, where they don't know what they're doing. They're in front of, at that time, 22 million people.
Live television, not
live,
film, not recorded. Yeah.
And actually, I'll just say that because my first season, the second episode, I was a scrawny little kid, and I slipped on Jenny Garth's dress, and I fell and dropped her consequently. And that what else could be? That's the worst fear possible, which is falling on live television. And I was like, well, we got that one out of the way. So like,
check that box. Don't have to worry about that now, because
don't have to worry about that. Yeah. So my advice is do the worst thing possible so it's just out of the way. No. But the nerve thing, and I'll just talk a little bit about with Kelly Pickler. She would, in rehearsal, she was fantastic. She was actually a very natural gifted dancer. And in rehearsal, I was just like blown away. Like, she's incredible. And then we would get to the rehearsal on stage in front of the cameras and the lights, and she would freeze up. And and it was a moment where I got really scared, because I was like, I don't really know how to, help her out here. And but I heard something that really was helpful, and it was whatever you focus on is what you feel. And I said, and when realizing that nerves and excitement are chemically virtually the same in your body, the only difference is the word you're using. And then what that does is that changes your focus. So whenever she'd be like, oh, Derek, I'm so nervous. And I was like, hey, just try something for me. I was like, just say that you're excited. And even if just say you're excited, you're excited. And so she was like, okay, I'm so I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm like, well, what are you excited about? She's like, well, I'm excited to wear this dress. It's really pretty. And well, I'm excited about this and I'm excited about that. So basically what I did is I just changed her focus, because now when you're saying you're nervous, you're focusing on, I'm nervous, I'm going to fall. I'm nervous, I'm not good enough. I'm nervous. And you're focusing on all the bad things that are going to happen. But if you say, I'm excited, now you're focusing on all the good things. I'm excited to show them what I've been working on. I'm excited about all these different things. And it was a huge moment, a breakthrough moment for us, where it became a joke and it became kind of a game where we're like, all right, I'm so excited, and by the way, my heart's beating like crazy. And even to this day, I do that for myself. I get those butterflies, I get that heart pounding, I get sweaty, I get kind of like my legs are a little bit shaky, and I'm like, I'm so excited, I can't wait to go out there. And it was just a great little hack into changing your focus, to help yourself perform
Another
better.
life hack. Another life hack.
Yeah.
Just realizing that the biochemistry that's going on, the physiology that's going on between nervousness and excitement is exactly the same. It's how we think about it, and that we can change our mindset, which then changes our focus and allows us to really achieve. One of the things I want to go back to that I just wanted to bring out was that your job was to lead your partner to the best performance they could do, to bring out their best. Not necessarily to win. It was really just to bring out the best in them. Sure, winning is great, but what I love about that and what you were saying is that you had to learn to lead. You had to learn how to teach. You had to learn. So you were and always have been a lifelong learner. You're always curious, as you said, about how do I do this or how do I get this result? And so you have to learn new skills, new abilities. And I love the fact that one of those was, how do I communicate with clarity? Because clarity, the clarity of the vision of what that dance is supposed to look like at the end, you're doing sort of you're telling, you're showing, and you're doing, right? You're going through those steps of helping them do it. So you found you couldn't just tell someone to do something because they didn't have context for it, right? You couldn't just show them how to do it because that's you doing it and not them. And then ultimately they had to perform, they had to do the actions, and then being able to communicate in a way that connected with them, that was within their context, created the clarity necessary then that you were able to take 6 of them to the championships. But I don't think you ever were below 4th place in the whole number of years you were doing it. And I kept up as a dad, with what you're doing. And it was pretty amazing. There were people that you had on the show that in the beginning, people would say that, okay, Derek isn't going to win this year because he's got so-and-so. And then lo and behold, you win. And it's like, wow, that person isn't someone we would have expected to ever win this kind of a competition. And I just thought, when people say, well, they always give Derek the best partner so that, he can win. And granted, you had some great ones. Nicole Scherzinger was just like,
Absolutely.
off the charts talented, right?
Which by the way, I would just say something like this. That's the hardest. Those seasons are the hardest, which is surprising, I'm sure, for people to hear. But the ones when you have people who have a lot of ability and capability, it's actually a lot. If you feel the pressure more because you're like, okay, well, if they don't do well, that's on me,
That's terrific. Anyway, so the dancing is you were very successful doing that. There's a whole discussion. I mean, you could write a book just on how each partner was different and the different style of leadership that you used with each of those people to help them, to draw out their very best. One of the greatest principles of leadership that I think there is just that. A leader is focused on bringing out the best in the person they're working with. And if we can figure out a way to get all of our leaders to think that way, we're going to have much more successful organizations because, and it's sort of this idea of servant leadership, right? That we know that we are being effective as a leader when we see the people that we lead growing and developing of their own accord, and that they have the desire to serve themselves and to lead and to help other people in these areas. So I saw that so specifically in this, and this whole idea of dance being sort of a metaphor for leadership is actually a really strong thing that we'll end up the podcast talking about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's talk about we've talked enough about you. Let's talk about us.
Yeah.
we we have had some fun adventures.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
I know that some of those have come with some greater intensity after my own father passed away. And I remember you being at the funeral and just sort of giving you that glistened look in your eye saying, we need to do some stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
and we
Well,
both
it's
love that
it's that
adventure.
it's that expression, when we say someday, we're like, someday we'll do that, someday we'll do this, someday we'll do that. And it's like that the path of someday leads to a town called nowhere, and that was a really a moment where that really became very yeah, just kind of like a clear moment where I was like, man, we need to do these things that we've been talking about doing. And we in fact I think I recall, like, within like 2 years we did some like Mayan ruins. We
Pretty epic
did
stuff. Yeah. Well, I
really
want to go
epic stuff.
back. I want to go back to just before you went to England. Um, we, I still have a very uh, clear picture of a dark night in a canoe on a lake, looking at the stars together, having a conversation. Now, to me, that's an
Yeah.
adventure. We were up at Camp Steiner in the Uintas in the state of Utah, and you were kind of preparing. You were going through some tough times. The family was going through some difficult times, but that was a connection that I think sort of solidified for me how great it is to be with someone you love in an adventurous situation, creating a memory, creating a learning opportunity where we can communicate in a different way. And to me, that sort of epitomizes a lot what we're trying to do with Lead too, which is let's get out of the normal context of life, which is an office or a building or something. Let's get outdoors. Let's get into a place where it's different, yet it's welcoming in some ways, but it's also has some risk and gives us a chance to communicate on a different level, have a different experience, and an experience that not only helps us in that moment, but is portable to our future. Because the one thing that came out of that for me was how important that relationship was with you. And if I'm in a business context, I'm thinking, well, if I'm in a situation like that, I have bonded more closely with my colleagues in a way that I've demonstrated vulnerability, which leads to trust, which leads to the ability to really communicate honestly with each other. And that's a critical leadership principle and skill that we need more than ever in politics and government, for sure, certainly in business and nonprofits, but also in just our own personal relationships with the people we care about or that we should care about. And so to me, that was sort of, I kind of go back to that little moment in time for me as being kind of a pivotal moment in what our relationship can be, should be, ought to be, will be. It's our, being in the out of doors, having those moments and sharing those times together that
Well, I think,
are memories that we will have forever.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I remember that I remember that memory, and it's a very cherished and precious memory that I hold dear,
And we
and I
liked the
love it so much.
stars too, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because even that's something we even to this day we share, where, like, if we see a sky and it's a beautiful star, we're like, wow, look at the stars tonight, look at the sky. And it's something that we share to this day. And talking about going into a different environment, to a sort of if you will, an unfamiliar environment, right, where you're like out. But really what is this is stripped down. It's kind of stripped down. It's kind of like you're taking away all these distractions. You're taking away all this, like, the clutter, if you will, and you're basically in this environment of where we sort of this primal place where our true nature, right? And I think that's another part of it too, is getting back to our true nature, to our real, our true selves, if you will. And I think that being in nature, I think, brings that out. I think it's easier to tap into that part of yourself when you are, on an adventure in nature. And it's a little bit more simplified in a way, even though there's still risk and excitement and adrenaline, but there's also peace and tranquility and reverence, and there's all these different sort of emotions and feelings that you're experiencing. And that's what nature for me does, and I think for so many people, and for people that don't even realize it too. That's what I love when people are like, I'm not really a nature person, and then you take them on a hike and they're like,
Whoa.
this has changed my life. They're like, I never thought I would just enjoy something like this so much. I thought I would, like, freak out if I didn't have my phone and if I didn't have this. And actually, this has been the most purifying experience I've ever been on. And and it's so cool to see that. And I know it's like, and so I know for you, Dad, like, you love to share, you love to build community, you love to serve. And you've always been like that. You've always been such a servant in your communities, with your family, with your loved ones, with your spouse, which is with everybody. And for me, this opportunity to be a servant but to do it in a place that, like, that you love, but that others can get so much from it as well. It's exciting. It's really, really exciting. Yeah. And by the way, thank you for instilling that adventurous spirit in me, and for instilling my love of nature and my love of the outdoors. And I really attribute a lot of that to you. That sense of adventure was really instilled by you, because you're like, hey, let's go do this. I'm like, okay.
Well, in fact, I was going to say, and we'll play some video behind us on this discussion a little bit, but there's I remember you had made this comment about how we needed to connect more and do some more things together, and one day I called you up and I said, hey, we're meeting in Coeur d'Alene on this date, but what are you doing like the 3 days before? And it was kind of like, I said, okay, this is it. This is that moment where we just do it. It's spontaneous and we just get it going. And we had a ball. I mean, we went over and flew in a biplane over in Heber City. Got to control the stick, and do the whole. What a joy that was. That was so much fun.
It was killer.
And then we were up in a razor going up into the hills and the trees and the meadows and everything, just the little ATVer, and that was beautiful. But the real fun began when we hit Jackson and did whitewater rafting. We did the still water rafting too, which was beautiful with the Tetons behind us.
Yeah, beautiful.
We did we did Yellowstone and we did Glacier, and we did those 3 national parks in 3 days. And
it was crazy.
Killed it. It was so much fun.
Oh, what was so cool about it too, Dad, was because it was just you and I. It was one of those things where it was like, hey, what's that? Let's go over there, and like, what's that? Let's go check that out. There was no real itinerary. It was very spontaneous and just like, let's just go do it. And that was so exciting. And I was getting into like filming stuff at that time as well. And like with the GoPros and my camera. And it was just like, I look back at some of those shots of the waterfall, that giant waterfall with it just blowing the wind. And then there was a time where we were walking through this charred forest where we had a big wildfire, but then there was this beautiful, like the flowers were starting to bloom. So it was like this black, like beautiful pillars, but with this beautiful, like brand new growth. And it was just so, with the mountains behind, there was just so much beauty that we witnessed in 3 days. And you're like, what's crazy about that too? Is that that's free, I mean, you gotta pay for some gas maybe, but that experience. And when I look back at that, I'm like, this looks like a movie. I'm like, wow, but that was a free experience.
But here's one of the things that I thought was really interesting. If you remember this, one of my favorite shots, and we'll show it, is a shot we would never have gotten if we hadn't gotten lost. Do you remember that? Well, we drove
in Montana.
Exit, and in Montana, and we ended up getting lost. And we went up this road, and it took us to a graveyard. And then we kind of crested this hill, and we saw it. We saw the most spectacular sunset. Crazy. And we were just in awe. We stopped. We got out of the car. There was this kind of cool fence that had been constructed to keep in cattle. And we relished. I just remember, we talk about being present. We literally just bathed ourselves in the experience of watching that sunset and seeing that beauty. And then finally we turned around and went to a fly tackle shop and said, we're lost. We're not sure where we are.
Where are we? By the way, this has been great, but where are we? I remember that.
Yeah, it was just fantastic.
I remember that. And I remember actually the sky being like this, like gorgeous. It was like this most just vibrant orange and yellow and just so. And then if you look this way, it was like this beautiful, cool blues and dark. Like it was almost like the sky was split in half. It was so mind blowing. So when people say Montana, big sky country, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And then Glacier was fantastic. And I mean, it was one of those great experiences. Later, we hooked up with one of your buddies, your personal trainer, who gets I need one of those. Yeah, but anyway, Mark Ferrari joined us, and we went to Guatemala. I've always been sort of an aficionado. I love the Mayan archaeology of Central America. I lived down in that area for a couple of years. I loved, I was just noticing, Copan right there. Copan, yeah. We've been to that one. We've been to all these we've been everywhere down there, but we just had a spectacular trip there. And again, it was an idea of, here's a time we can spend together. It's an adventure, because anything that you don't know what's going to happen is an adventure. If you don't know the final result of it, it is an adventure. And we saw things that I'd never seen before. Certainly Derek had never seen, Mark had never seen before. Some of the places I'd been to, but we went to places that none of us had been. I remember, speaking of adventure, seeing some of the migrants from Honduras on boats on the river being transported up north, and thinking, now that's an adventure. I mean, they're looking for a better way of life. They're struggling to figure out how to feed their families, and they're not legal, but they're trying to do something and taking a risk to do that. And of course, as you know, we try to do things in those parts of the world to help people stay where they are and become self-sufficient. But these are adventures. I mean, this whole idea of doing something new like that. And then you've been on some adventures that you didn't take me on. Swimming with the whales in Tonga, and with the sharks, and South Africa, and the safaris, and all the things that you've done. And I love that you're into photography to capture some of those memories. But these are we had a fun guys trip.
It was
Colorado
awesome.
River.
And to just go off what you're saying too about adventure, it's interesting. One thing I've realized with all these amazing adventures, where you're swimming with humpback whales, or in a cage with a great white shark, or you're swimming with dolphins, or whatever it might be, or the Mayan ruins, or all these places. I love adventure, and again, I thank you because you instilled that in me. And I'm so thankful for that, because I feel like the life just feels a bit more rich and a bit more exciting. And but I also will say that what it kind of reminds you of a little bit too sometimes is that in those adventures, you say this before, like, you bring that home with you. You know what I mean? You bring that back, and then you start to realize there's actually a lot of adventure in your everyday life, and how you can create so much adventure. I mean, just talking to a stranger, I mean, that's saying hi to somebody, like that's an adventure. There's I don't know about you, but maybe not you, Dad, because you're a very friendly guy where you go say hi to everybody. But to engage in a conversation with a stranger, your heart's beating a little bit. You're a little bit like, oh, what are they going to say? What's going to happen? Like, there's that unknown. And it's interesting that you're practicing in sort of an adventure, like in the physical sense, out in like the wilderness. But it's like the little adventures of day-to-day life of like helping somebody, seeing somebody that needs some help. I'm going to stop over. I'm going to help them change that tire, or I'm going to go over here. There's so many adventures constantly throughout our day. But we just need to notice them too. It's that idea of like, you'll experience more grace when you start to acknowledge it, essentially. So when you just start acknowledging all these adventures, you're going to experience more adventure.
That's it for this episode of Adventures in Leadership. We hope you enjoyed our discussion on the lessons and experiences gained from taking on the adventure of life and business, and how it can inform your own leadership development. This has been a production of Lead. We are a new kind of personal, team, and organizational leadership company, dedicated to accompanying those who want evidence-based learning and education that activates development and growth to produce the results you want in life and in business. We are also dedicated to serving youth in a quest to minimize digital reliance, to provide outdoor activities, to do hard things, to serve others, and to put a little adventure in their lives. Check out our website at l-e-a-d.co to learn more about who we are and how we are serving.